Hello, my lovely little gemstones. It's Saphira, and today I'm going to be reading Chapter 5 of I Am Creativity, written by myself. Chapter 5, the Epilogue. After 2 weeks, Creativity could count the number of words Patton had spoken to him on one hand. It wasn't like the feeling wasn't mutual. Creativity was in no rush to go back to the way things were. Patton didn't mean to hurt him, of course. None of them did. But that didn't change how it was his influence that had led to him splitting himself apart all those years ago. Part of him wanted to forgive Patton. Part of him wanted to ignore him forever. Creativity could guess which of his pieces felt which way. It led to him feeling rather indifferent about the whole thing, tired from the internal conflict. The other two had tried to give the two of them space and let them work things out on their own. But after dinner one night, when Patton cleared everyone's dishes from the table and set the dishwasher running with only a vague smile in the general direction of the couch before he retreated to his room, they broke. "Don't you care that he's ignoring you?" Virgil asked, hissing slightly as he tried to keep his voice under control. Creativity looked up from the script in his hands, checking the final draft before they filmed the video the next week. "He's not exactly ignoring me," Creativity mumbled. Did they really have to have this conversation now? "He's spoken exactly 4 words to you in the last 2 weeks, unless you two spoke within that period and I'm not aware of it," Logan interjected. Creativity huffed, putting the script down. "No, he hasn't said anything to me. But I haven't been trying either. What makes you think I want him to talk to me?" Virgil shrunk back at that, though Logan didn't seem fazed. "Don't you want to make up with him? Don't you want him to apologize for what happened?" "The way I see it, I'm the one who said bad things to Patton. If anyone should be apologizing, shouldn't it be me?" Creativity droned. "But..." He sighed, leaning over and dropping the script in Logan's lap before standing up and stretching his arms above his head, feeling his joints pop. "I know if you were in my situation, you'd want apologies from whoever hurt you. But what's the point of getting them if they don't mean anything? I'm not interested in empty words or fake apologies. If he's avoiding me, then I hope that means he's putting some actual thought into this whole thing." Virgil reached out and snatched Creativity's wrist before he could walk away, staring at him with wide eyes. "But if you two don't talk, you might never make up." "Virgil, if Deceit came down the stairs right now and apologized for everything that happened between the two of you, would you believe he was being genuine?" Creativity stared intently as he asked. The former Darkseid blinked, and he suddenly couldn't meet Creativity's eyes. That's different. Patton's not Deceit, and I'm not you. You've always gotten along with Patton. You hate getting into fights with him, so why... Roman disliked getting into disagreements with Patton, but we should not expect Creativity to react the same way. Remember, Virgil, he's not just Roman anymore," Logan gently reminded him, and Virgil hung his head. "I know. I don't want you two to end up like we did." Creativity knew he was referring to his and Deceit's strained relationship. Even with Remus's memories, he still didn't know the full details of everything that had gone down between them. Whatever had happened, it had clearly ruined a good relationship they'd had. He smiled, leaning over to pat Virgil's shoulder gently. "Thank you for worrying about me. I really do appreciate it. Patton will come around in his own time. It's frustrating, but unfortunately, feelings are not something that can be explained or fixed like a material object." Creativity blinked, then he grinned in Logan's direction. The logical side raised an eyebrow. "What, did I say something odd?" "No, I'm just surprised, that's all. You've come a long way from where you used to be, Logan. I'm proud of you." The logical side froze, staring down at the script in his hands in shock. Creativity laughed softly. "Oops, I think I broke him. Make sure Logan gets to bed sometime tonight, will you, Virgil? I'm gonna go and finish up some other things in my room." Virgil watched the creative side round the stairs and disappear from view, footsteps echoing above them. Then he reached over to snap his fingers in front of Logan's face, breaking him out of his frozen state. "You know, I'm still having a little trouble remembering that that's not Princey. But when he says stuff like that..." Logan cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses with the faintest tinge of red in his cheeks. "Indeed. Now, shall we retire for the night?" Virgil snickered as Logan stood up quickly, crumpling the script in his haste to leave the common area before the anxious side noticed his blushing. Unfortunately for him, Virgil was nothing if not observant. "Hey, Lo, Logan stopped halfway up the stairs, staring down. Yes, Virgil? For what it's worth, I'm proud of you too, Teach. Virgil couldn't see him blush, but his hasty retreat and door slam was enough to tell him the truth. Virgil chuckled. Wow, he should try doing that more often. Creativity had no shortage of projects to work on. Besides Thomas's normal workload, he'd been working daily to develop new ideas, worlds they could explore, concepts Roman never would have considered, ideas Remus never could have cultivated. It kept him up late every night, long after the others had gone to bed. He couldn't help it. For the first time, his work actually meant something to him, and he just knew it would show when he finally shared it. His hand was on fire, swapping back and forth between his notebook and sketchpad, ideas flowing as smooth as a river. There was nothing holding him back but the cramps that he occasionally had to shake out of his hand. Creativity paused. He thought he'd heard something, the smallest of noises that had broken him out of his creative trance. His hand hovered, pencil still tightly in his grip. There it was again. It was coming from behind, beyond his door. It sounded like a knock. Creativity glanced at the clock on his nightstand. It was just past midnight. It was probably Logan, coming to make him go to bed and give him a lecture on the importance of healthy sleeping habits. Creativity? Are you still awake? That wasn't Logan. Creativity tensed, his left hand shaking uncontrollably. Whether it was from fear or anger, he wasn't quite sure. He gently held his left hand in his right, running his thumb over his knuckle. It's okay. He can't hurt us. I won't let him. The creative side stood, his back screaming in protest as he moved to the door. He took a deep breath and opened it, trying to suppress both a smile and a sneer at the sight of him. Patton, it's late. Shouldn't you be asleep? I wanted to talk to you, if you'll let me. Creativity wanted to slam the door in his face. He wanted to make an excuse, tell Patton that he was tired, and could they just talk another day? But against his better judgment, he moved aside. Patton took it as a silent invitation, and after a moment he stepped inside, searching Creativity's face for emotion. Creativity had never been happier than, at this moment, that he was a well-practiced actor, as he schooled his features into a blank stare. The moral side stood awkwardly just inside the doorway, as Creativity leaned back against the footboard of his bed. It gave him a twisted sense of satisfaction, knowing Patton was so uncomfortable in his presence. Patton inhaled sharply, eyes fixed firmly at Creativity's feet. He kept his hands clasped tightly in front of him, knuckles white from his grip. Before I say anything else, I want to apologize for avoiding you these past few weeks. I was so confused. I didn't know how to feel about what happened, and I didn't want to risk saying something that would hurt your feelings because I didn't give myself enough time to think about it. Creativity crossed his arms, watching Patton's face carefully. His left hand was still shaking, but he gripped his right arm hard to hide it. His nails were going to leave marks, but he didn't particularly care. It's fine. That wasn't what Patton had wanted to hear, judging by how his face twisted in guilt. It's not like I don't accept you. We had watched you, Remus had just disappeared, and we didn't know what happened, and then Roman collapsed, and his outfit started turning completely black, and we couldn't wake him up for hours, so I was so relieved when I thought he'd come back, and when you told us that you weren't him anymore, I didn't know what to do. So sorry to disappoint, Creativity quipped sarcastically, rolling his eyes. Patton waved his hands wildly, trying to backpedal. I didn't mean, I'm happy, you're back to normal, I was just... He blew out a breath, letting that sentence fall. I guess that didn't make you feel any better, did it? Finally, the walls that Creativity had built up started to break and he sighed, letting his arms fall. It's okay, Patton. I get it. This whole thing has taken some adjustment from all of us. Yes, but that's only half of what I wanted to apologize for. What do you mean? Patton slowly took a breath, trying to calm his racing heart. I thought about what you said, and you were right. Creativity narrowed his eyes. About what? I was the reason you two split up in the first place, all those years ago. It was my fault. Patton forced his hands apart, reaching up to wrap his arms around himself. I've always tried to protect Thomas, to make sure that he was doing the right thing. I thought to be a good person, he had to have good thoughts as well, and that didn't match up with reality. He was blinking rapidly now. I really didn't mean to cause harm. I never meant for you two to split into completely separate people. I just thought it would be good if Thomas could keep better control of those thoughts. Even after it happened, I should have treated you two the same, but I didn't. I was selfish, and I thought this was the chance to... I don't even know anymore. I don't know what I was thinking. Patton was crying now. The tears flowed freely down his cheeks, and he made no move to stop them. They cared so much for each other, but I was blind to it. I thought I knew better than you two on what Thomas wanted and needed, and in the process, I completely ruined your relationship. I promise I didn't mean to. I wasn't as good at taking your feelings into account back then, and I know that's no excuse, and it doesn't change what happened or make up for what I did, but I just want you to know that I am so, so sorry, and I understand if you hate me for it, but I just want you to know that I... He swallowed, breath hitching. He finally seemed to realize that there were tears running down his face as he roughly rubbed at his eyes with the heels of his hands. I'm sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. This isn't about me. This is about you. And I have no right to cry about this at all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Patton mumbled the two words over and over again. Creativity pushed himself to a standing position, gliding over to the moral side in 2 easy strides. Patton shut his eyes tight, bracing himself for whatever scathing comment Creativity would throw at him. Whatever it was, he would take it. He knew he deserved it. But Creativity didn't say anything. Instead, he opened his arms and held Patton tightly in a hug that surprised him so much it stopped his tears. Then he heard 3 simple words that whispered into his ear, and the floodgates opened stronger than ever. I forgive you. Patton buried his face in Creativity's shoulder, the fabric growing damp in seconds. He found he didn't really care, holding the fatherly side until he stopped shaking and could form coherent thoughts. You don't have to, you know. You're allowed to be mad at me for what happened. The creative side shook his head. I don't have time to be angry. You're right, Patton. Your apology doesn't change what happened. We still split and spent years hating each other, in part because we were forced apart. Patton bit his lip, but Creativity wasn't finished. It may not change the past, but we can change the future. But for that, I'm going to need your help. Of course, anything. What can I do? To start, we need to allow deceit and obsession to join our discussions, especially when it's a topic that involves their influence. Patton froze. Are you sure that's really what we need to do? Creativity huffed, stepping back and staring at Patton, crossing his arms. Why not? The moral side opened his mouth to argue, but he paused. Deceit and obsession were dark sides, but Remus had been too. But now, the side standing in front of him was a combination of the two. What did that make Creativity now? The confliction was clear on his face. Creativity sighed. I know you don't like them, and I'm not asking you to suddenly be best friends with them. I wouldn't expect you to, but this whole mess just got worse when we decided that they were different from us somehow, and then it somehow made their opinions less than ours. I know it was Roman who came up with the name, but from now on, we're not going to call them dark sides. We're all just Thomas's sides, okay? Creativity watched the moral side carefully. His eyes were flitting back and forth, and he knew Patton wasn't going to be easy to sway. It had been like this for so long, and the current status quo benefited them. Why would he want it to change? But Creativity wouldn't take no for an answer. He remembered the pain of being alone, left to the wayside by everyone, even their host, ignored when they only had good intentions to help, desperately trying to get Thomas's attention with wilder and wilder thoughts, because that was the only thing he reacted to, knowing that they could never get accepted, so being feared would just have to do. I know you're right. It's not going to be easy, but I want to try. I want Thomas to be happy. And if you think that doing this will make him happy, then I'll do my best. A wide grin broke onto Creativity's face, and he hugged Patton again, lifting him off the ground. It will! I know it will! Thank you, Patton, thank you! Patton couldn't help but giggle, hugging him back once Creativity set him back down. Okay, careful, we don't want to wake the other two. Patton hushed through his laughter. Creativity nodded, holding a hand over his mouth. It was like the weight of the entire world had been lifted off his shoulders. He felt lighter than air, like the smallest hop would send him rocketing into the sky. When Patton let out a yawn, he excused himself from Creativity's room. Sleep well, Creativity. You too, Patton. I'll see you in the morning. Creativity laid back on his bed, cradling his head with his arms. He hugged himself, drifting off to sleep with a gentle smile still fixed on his face. Several days later, the four sides stood in the living room, waiting for their cue to pop up into Thomas's latest video. He was still setting up, but Creativity was already shaking with anticipation. He startled when he felt a hand on his arm, and Creativity glanced over to see Virgil staring at him with worry in his eyes. Are you good with this? You know, we can always tell Thomas that you couldn't make it, if you're not ready. Creativity blinked, then shook his head. No, I'm fine, I promise. Just, pre-video jitters, that's all. There's no reason to be nervous, Creativity. I'm sure that Thomas will accept your presence without issue. Virgil looked back and forth between Logan and Creativity. Is that what you're worried about? Creativity cleared his throat. Of course not. I mean, it would be ridiculous for him to throw me away now that I'm together again, right? He ran his fingers through his hair, his bravado crumbling before their eyes. Logan shook his head. No, he wouldn't do that. It would be completely illogical for him to do so. His livelihood relies heavily on your influence. Ignoring you would mean he would need to completely change the course of his life and get a job that doesn't involve creative thoughts in the slightest. And Thomas doesn't like drastic change, Virgil added, rubbing his arms. Creativity sighed. Right, but that doesn't mean he'll treat me the same as he treated Roman. Another hand rested gently on his shoulder, and Creativity looked back to see Patton smiling at him. It'll be okay. Thomas will accept you, because he's the one who wanted you back like this in the first place. What? What are you talking about? Thomas doesn't even know what happened. Patton shook his head. Maybe not, but everything we do is in some way influenced by what Thomas wants. If he really wanted to keep Roman and Remus as completely separate creativities, then he would have. Then Patton took his hand and sandwiched it between his own, clasping it tightly. But you're here, and that means Thomas wants you here, whether he realizes it or not. Creativity felt a sudden tug in his gut, and the four of them looked up simultaneously. Thomas is ready to start filming, Logan observed. Last chance. You're scripted to rise up last. We could tell him you couldn't make it, Virgil offered. Creativity shook his head, rolling his shoulders back. No, I'm ready. Whatever happens, I want Thomas to know about me. He felt 3 pairs of eyes watching him. He flashed them a wide smile, and Logan nodded after a moment. All right, then. Then he was gone, risen up into the video. Virgil shot Creativity a wary smile before he was gone too, though he simply disappeared rather than faded like Logan did. See you up there, kiddo? Creativity nodded at Patton, who left him alone as he rose up. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath before rising up himself. Showtime. What is up, everybody? Thomas grinned widely at the camera as he did his normal energetic intro. Today's video is gonna be a little different. Over the past few weeks, I've been feeling pretty good, but also really weird. So I wanted to call everyone in and see what's been going on in this mind of mine. He put a finger to his temple as if to point to his brain. So let's go from right to left. Logan! The logical side rose up smoothly, nodding to his host. Afternoon, Thomas. Hey, Logan. So, I was wondering, did something happen recently? Like, in my mind. Logan pursed his lips. Well, physically, you're perfectly healthy. Both your body and mind are in good condition. By all my accounts, you should be feeling fine. Yeah, I'm doing alright in that department, but there's something different. Logan tilted his head. If you're worried about something, shouldn't you be asking someone else about that? Thomas chuckled. Yeah, guess you're right. Okay, then. Virgil? He couldn't help but jump slightly when the anxious side appeared. He didn't know if he'd ever get used to how quickly he could pop into his thoughts. Sup, Thomas? Virgil greeted, saluting him casually. Hey, Virg. Say, is there something you've been worried about lately? Like, more than just the usual stuff, I mean. Virgil shifted, stuffing his hands into his pockets. I don't know. There's not really anything stressful going on right now. In fact, you've been doing pretty good. Your latest videos have gotten really good feedback, you're ahead on your projects, and you've even got some more lined up when you finish the ones you have now. Things look good. You're not going to hear me complaining. Thomas narrowed his eyes. That wasn't a very helpful answer. Logan hadn't given him a proper response to his question either. He'd deflected it. He would suspect Deceit's involvement, but it was both of them. Something was wrong. Is there something you two aren't telling me? The look Virgil and Logan shared, however brief, spoke volumes. They were lying to him. Or at least they weren't being honest. Alright, fine. Maybe Roman will give me a proper answer. Hiya, kiddo, Patton interrupted, cheery as ever. Patton? But I was calling Roman. Huh? Oh, sorry. Did I mess up the order? My bad. Patton was chipper, almost unnaturally so. It reminded him of when Deceit had impersonated him, but that wasn't it. He didn't know how he knew, but he did. Thomas shrugged. Maybe Patton would tell him. It's alright, Patton. Hey, I'm curious. Hi, Curious. I'm Dad. Thomas sighed. He should have seen that one coming. Over the past few weeks, I've been feeling really off. I don't know how to explain it, really. It wasn't a bad feeling, but it was different. He saw Patton's face shift, and the fatherly side laughed awkwardly. Well, now that you mention it... I knew it! What are you guys trying to hide from me? Thomas looked between the three of them. Virgil sighed. It's not really our news to tell, Thomas. That only confused him more. What? Is it something Deceit's hiding from me? I thought he couldn't do that if I told you I wanted to know. Deceit doesn't have anything to do with this, kiddo. Then who does? That would be me. Thomas whipped his head towards the corner of the room, where Roman had finally risen up. Oh, Roman, you're here. Thank goodness. Everyone's avoiding my questions. Please, do you know what's been going on these past few weeks? Since when did you ask Roman for updates? The creative side snickered. Thomas blinked. Why was he referring to himself in third person? On a similar note, what happened to your outfit? The side smiled, glancing over at the other three. Don't blame them. They were just trying to stall for me. It's a pleasure to finally be able to meet you, Thomas. I'm looking forward to helping you. Thomas narrowed his eyes, taking a closer look at Roman's outfit. It was gray, and he had a bright green sash tied around his waist. Not to mention the logo on his arm had completely changed. You're not Roman. He shook his head, gaze soft. No, not anymore. But I hope that we can still be friends, even if I did take over his spot. Who are you, then? Thomas asked, watching Logan, Patton, and Virgil for any side of discomfort. His first thought was that this is Deceit, and he'd somehow convinced the others that nothing was wrong. But he quickly threw that thought away when he noticed the soft, genuine smiles three of them were giving this new side. Patton was beaming brightly as the gray-clad side took a sweeping bow, then glanced up with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Who? Me? Why, it's quite simple, really. He stood up straight, holding his arms wide and flourishing his wrists. I am creativity. Thank you all so much for listening and coming along on this ride with me. Writing I Am Creativity was so much fun, and I really have to just thank all of you for watching these videos and encouraging me to get all of these out. I'm so glad that you enjoyed this. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any new series on my channel. And if you liked it and you want to read it again, you can find the link to the fic in the description. I'll see you next time.